So this is how many books I read this year, other than we're missing some. But this is a good estimate to let you know what you're getting into with this video. It's me, October Legs. Maybe I'll look the same in December, but just in case I cut all my hair off and dye my buzz cut blue. That's why I look different, but maybe I look the same. I don't know. I gotta start this video early though, because I'm leaving for Bali in a week and I'm not taking all my books with me. So this is what I've read so far. And then the ending of the video, I'll probably see you in December and catch you up on what I read in Indonesia. The first thing my eyes had the honor of gracing this year of 2022 was the Parasite series by Hitoshi Iwaki. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna try again though, because I think it will just be just as bad if I try again. I really enjoyed this. The series is very thought-provoking and raises a lot of questions about what is humanity. It's not my favorite art style, but I still really enjoyed the illustrations as well, especially the ones on the cover. I'm just gonna show you this cover though for now, even though I promise I read them all. Manga is definitely better than the anime in this case, so if you've watched it, but you're like, oh, I'm not gonna read it, I already watched it, I get it. Trust me, you will enjoy this much more than having to deal with the dubstep behind all the action scenes. I'd give the series an 8.5 out of 10. There are some books that are more like 9 out of 10s for me, and some that are more like 6 or 7. So I think overall, as an average for the series, 8.5 out of 10. Uzumaki, Junjito, obviously obsessed. I mean, if you know me, you knew I was gonna love this one. By the way, I promise it's not all manga. I promise I read some real books too. Some no pictures. I'm really excited for the anime of this to come out. I have really high hopes. And I also got the coloring book, so woo! 10 out of 10. Number 3, smashed. Also Junjito. Manga moment here at the beginning. I'm sorry, this will be the last one for a little bit. I just started the year off with a little kick. I like the stories, but it's not my favorite of his stuff, so 8 out of 10, because it's still really good, but just not my favorite. Number 4, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert N. Pirsig? Not sure. Looks like I got a little oil from my motorcycle on it. Looks authentic. I think it was like amino acids. This is from the 70s. Takes place in the 60s. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's about spirituality, philosophical stuff, plus motorcycle maintenance. Motorcycles in general. It's kind of got a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde fight clubby thing going on. And he goes on a road trip with his son and he keeps having flashbacks to when he was a professor and he was forced into electric shock therapy for being mentally ill, and the electric shock therapy just made him mentally ill in a new way. The philosophy parts are very dualistic, which I really like. If you replace the word quality with Tao, you basically have the Tao Te Ching right here, long form, modern version. 7.5 out of 10. 5, Emerson essays. It's a bunch of essays, but I'm counting it as a book that I read because it looks like a book. I like Emerson. I liked most of these essays. There wasn't one that I hated. There were just ones I liked more than others. If you don't know, Emerson's a transcendentalist. I love transcendentalist literature. Love transcendentalism. This one is definitely harder to read relative to the ones that I've talked about so far and a lot of others on this list, but definitely worth decoding. 8 out of 10. Here we have 2 things, technically. The first book is a vindication of the rights of women, and then the second, I don't know if I could call it a book, I will call it a work, is The Wrongs of Woman, or Mariah, which it's just not finished, but it's, you know. These 2 are also relatively harder to read, but well worth it. I actually got this used at Powell's in Oregon, and so I have some highlights in it from other people, and I actually have 2 different people had this before me. One that was a highlighter, and one that was a notes in the marginer. A noter of margins, and they both have their names in it. So shout out to Elijah Sedes and Kyle Kierkegaard. I didn't know people still had the name Kierkegaard. That's the first time that I actually just realized his last name. They probably got this book for a women's study class to pick up chicks, I think, because only the first like 2 chapters are like, only like the first 4 chapters are highlighted. So I feel like that was either the curriculum or they gave up. Maybe they got a girlfriend and didn't have to read it anymore. A Vindication of the Rights of Women, super based, little slut-shamey, but as for the Wrongs of Woman, or Maria, I don't know. It's about this girl, Mariah, and she has a hard life in poverty and with sexism, and it actually wasn't ever meant to be published, but her husband published it posthumously. Is that how you say that? Anyway. And yeah, so it kind of actually ended up ruining her reputation, which sucks for her because people knew the parallels between, yeah. Oh, also I forgot to say, but if you don't know, Mary Wollstonecraft is, did I even say that this is by Mary Wollstonecraft? I'm sorry. This is Mary Shelley's mom, right here. Her mama, she died from giving birth to Mary Shelley, actually. Sorry I had to go for that, but thank you for Mary Shelley. Speaking of the devil, right here we have a biography of Mary Shelley. It's called In Search of Mary Shelley, the Girl Who Wrote Frankenstein by Fiona Sampson. I really love this. I would love to read more of this Fiona Sampson. I think she's a great writer. She really brought so much color to this, which you don't usually see with biographies. Like, it was so entertaining for a biography, but I really just loved the writing in this, and of course it was very interesting to find out more about Mary Shelley. And I think this is probably also like the best biography you're gonna get on her because it covers everything. I feel like I don't need another biography on Mary Shelley. I don't ever need to read another biography of Mary Shelley again because I feel like this covered everything. This author is just so descriptive and also raises like a lot of interesting questions, which I found really entertaining. So 9 out of 10. The book on the taboo against knowing who you are, Alan Watts. I love Alan Watts. All of his books are good, of course. This is one of the better known ones. So I've been wanting to read this for years and finally got around to it, and I'm so glad I did. 9 out of 10. The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. This one also has Heaven and Hell, but we're just gonna do The Doors of Perception first. And I liked it. All right, it's about tripping. It's like his experience tripping. He wrote it down after. Oh, and it's a mescaline trip, by the way. But yeah, he talks about how things breathe, the way colors are like brighter, and just, I mean, if you've tripped, you know what it's like, but it's really interesting to see it like written in like essay format. 7 out of 10. And then Heaven and Hell, I hate it. I'm sorry. I like Aldous Huxley, so I feel bad saying this, but Heaven and Hell as an essay, as anything, I just don't like it. I maybe it's because I can't relate. Like, a lot of it, especially towards the end, is about art that I've like never seen. So I'm like, I don't care about your art critiques. I don't know this art. Also sometimes about psychedelics though. 4.5 out of 10. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. A counterintuitive approach to living a good life. I enjoyed this. I thought it was going to be like cringy because of how many people like it and because of how much it says fuck. I just thought it was going to be over the top, and it just wasn't. It was really good, and I thought it had good advice too. Like, I feel like it genuinely improved my life a little bit, which is what you want out of a self-help book, even though this is kind of like anti-self-help. It's, yeah, not your average self-help book, mostly because it says fuck 400 fucking times, but good anyway. Good advice. It's applicable to almost anybody, and it's fun, and it's easy to read, so 8 out of 10. I feel bad because I've given much better books 8s, but I feel like this one doesn't deserve like a 7. Maybe it does though. I think I might change my rating to 7 because I'm thinking about all the great books that I've given 8. Like, I'm seriously gonna put this on par with some of the Vonnegut I read. Like, no, I think I'll give it a 7. Number 13, I forgot to number these for a little bit. It's not even number 13, it's way more than number 13 when you count how many were in a series, but for this video. Number 13 was Interpreter of the Maldives, but I got it from an Airbnb that I was staying at in Puerto Rico. I do not have it on me. If you want to know what the cover looks like, look it up. It's by, oh, I'm gonna butcher this. It's like Jhumpa Lahiri? I don't know how to say that, I'm sorry. It's a compilation of short stories that are all really, really good, really make you think, mostly about immigrants, mostly like India, kind of like Asia area and immigrating to India or traveling there, or coming to America from India or other places around. Kind of rotate, like one story about a failing marriage and then one story about like something immigrant-y also. And usually the failing marriages have like Indian people in it, or like an Indian person and then an American person. 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed this one. I wish I could hold it up and say 9 out of 10. 14, Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari. I didn't even know Aziz Ansari wrote a book. I also found this in an Airbnb. It was funny, also surprisingly informative, and made you think. 7 out of 10. 15, Numbers Rule Your World by Kaiser Fung. Sorry, don't know how to say the name. Fung. It's about statistics. 7 out of 10. Don't have it. It was in my Airbnb. 16, Freakonomics by Stephen Levitt and Stephen Dubner. I don't know, and I don't care. I think it sucked, and I think it's racist. And in their second one, which I didn't read, but I read the back of, they're like, oh, people call this racist, but we're just fucking based. So, like, they know that some of the stuff is, like, not okay, but they're just like, oh, that's economics for you. And, like, yeah, economics is systemically racist. Like, that's how systemic racism exists. A big part of it is economics. But that doesn't mean that they should have written it with the tone that they wrote it with. You know what I mean? Like, you can just tell. This book is also about statistics, like the last book. Except for, I fact-checked some of these statistics extensively because I could tell that they weren't real, and I wanted to double check that they weren't just smarter than me and all the other people who were like, that's not real. And most of the fake statistics suggest that at least one of these Stevens has microaggressions towards Black people, so 3 out of 10? I mean, I should give racism a 0 out of 10, but the parts of the book that aren't racist, there are parts of the book that I found interesting and good, so I'm sorry, I'm giving it 3 points. 0 points for racism, but 3 points for the parts that were decent. Just so, Alan Watts. I finally have a book in my hand. It feels good to have an Alan Watts book in my hand. Love him, always. This one wasn't my favorite, but of course it's good, because good enough for 8.5 out of 10. Canoeing in the Wilderness, Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau's my favorite. Oh, I love him so much. Whenever people ask the question, who would you have dinner with, living or dead? My answer is always Thoreau. I'm like, I need to talk to this man. Someone raise him up. We have words to say to each other. This one's kind of like autobiographical, but it's just of this like one little day. I don't even know what you would call that. Obviously, it's like nonfiction, first person, but I don't know what you would call like, I don't know. It's just him and his buddy cruising through the wilderness in a canoe with an indigenous guy, helping them along, teaching them, keeping them safe, keeping them on track. 8 out of 10. Promise me, Richard Paul Evans. I hate this book. If you saw my video on this book, you know I hate this book. Go watch my video on how much I hate this book. 0 out of 10. Thank gosh we have Alan Watts coming in to save us with Psychotherapy East and West. Once again, not my favorite of his, but it's him and it's his words, so of course it's still really good. This time he's focusing specifically on psychology and comparing Eastern and Western psychology and Eastern and Western ways of therapy, basically. 8.5 out of 10. 21, Bull Mountain. I found this book at my family's cabin because my aunt was reading it. I shouldn't have read it, but I was bored, and here we are. It was a lot of murder, family feuds type of stuff. I'm not a murder mystery person, and I didn't like the style of the writer, so 4 out of 10. East of Eden, John Steinbeck. This is my new favorite Steinbeck, which says a lot because I love Steinbeck already so much, and I've read a good bit, but this is the one. This is the one. Very heavy focus on the Cain and Abel story from the Bible. Sometimes Adam and Eve too. Just very biblically based. So if you're not a Bible person and you don't know much about Genesis specifically, it's not going to hit as hard as it hits for me. But it's still going to be really good. Like, you don't have to like the Bible or anything, or even know Cain and Abel or Adam and Eve or anything to enjoy this. It makes the symbolism stick harder, I feel like. I don't know. 9 out of 10. I almost want to give it a 10. I don't know. At least a 9. Maybe 9.5 or 10, but I'm going to be chill, Give it a 9. A high 9. 23. A Midsummer Night's Dream. So light, so fun, so great. I like it. I like these Folgers Shakespeare Library versions. I think the footnotes are good. I think the intros are always good too. And I mean, Shakespeare's Shakespeare. I'm sure you know what this is, but I honestly, again, think this might be my new favorite Shakespeare. Like, I think this made me change. Like, my old favorite was Macbeth, but this is just so much more fun. You know, of course it is, because it's a comedy, so it's fun. I don't know. I think this is my new favorite. 9 out of 10. Number 24 is Shiver by Junjito. And I loved this, especially the title story, Shiver. I thought that one, oh, I can't think about it. We gotta put this away because it's gonna scare me thinking about it. Compared to his other stuff, this one's less gory and more psychological thriller. And he's always really good at that, so I can't even look at it without like remembering being so scared. 10 out of 10. Even though like Shiver, I would give it 10 out of 10 like as a story, I think the whole collection overall give it an 8 out of 10 because some of the other stories were just more like 6s and 7s and that one was a 10, so I feel like 8 is fair. Next we have some more Junjito. This one's Gyo. I'm not sure how to say it. But I really like this one. This one's long form. It's all the same story and it's really creative. Like the whole idea of just like sea animals growing legs and being able to walk out and terrorize you, because it's like you think you're safe on land from sharks, but it's like, what if shark come on land and get you? Which is really fun, and the drawings are all really good and the writing's the usual. So 8.5 out of 10. Eat that frog. Brian Tracy. My mom has been ranting and raving about this book forever, so found it at a garage sale, thought why not give it a try. It's a little corny, a little capitalistic for me, but I will say it's effective. Ever since I read it, I've been eating frogs left and right. Gonna give it a 7 out of 10, because that's my mom's favorite number. I would give this little frog a 10 out of 10 though. And he's on the little endings of the chapters. You see him again, but then I remember I was supposed to be eating him, and I didn't like that. But 10 out of 10 for the frog. But 7 out of 10 for the book. 27. Walden and Civil Disobedience. I mean, I love Thoreau. You already know I love Thoreau. Plus, this is a reread for me. Plus, this is my favorite book of all time. Well, Walden. Civil Disobedience is an essay. But, oh, they're both so good. Yeah, my favorite book of all time. I reread this because I was out in my family's cabin, surrounded by the nature, and it was just time. It's time to reread it and time to experience it out in the wilderness. For those of you who don't know, it's about Thoreau. He goes and he lives in a cabin by Walden Pond. That's why it's called Walden. And he lives deliberately. 10 out of 10. Best book ever written. We don't need any more books. We have this one. 28. On another note, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. I will kill this man. And I can say that because he's already dead. God killed him while he was in the middle of writing the series because God didn't want it to happen. But he got people to finish it for him anyways after he died because he already... Worst book ever. And I can say that because I've never not finished a book. And this is the first book I could not finish because usually I can at least like hate read it and be like, oh, such an idiot. But I couldn't even hate read it because all I could think about was this guy is profiting off of the traumas of women and acting like a feminist hero to get rid of his guilt for the traumas that he caused women. Sexual ones, by the way. And I know that the point of the book is like, men suck, women good and strong. But he was a bad man, telling us about the things that bad men like him do. And if you don't know, you can look it up and like see what is so bad about him. And women face these violences in real life every day. It doesn't make you a feminist hero to talk about the sufferings of women. And like all this is him white knighting and trying to make himself feel better. It's not girl boss at all. 0 out of 10, -2 out of 10, -1,000,000,000. I will strangle his corpse with my bare hands and still not feel any better about how terrible this book is. I'm like shaking. Actually, I'll give Girl with a Dragon Tattoo a 0 out of 10. I don't need to go negative, and I'll just bump Promise Me up to a 2. Promise Me is now 2 out of 10 because Girl with a Dragon Tattoo is so bad. My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. Sorry if I didn't say that right, but if you've seen this one, you probably saw it on TikTok. I don't have a TikTok, but I look up book talk anyways to see what the people are reading, and the people were reading this year, so I read it, and it was okay. I honestly really enjoyed reading it. It was kind of a guilty pleasure though, because I wish I didn't relate to the main character. Like, the main character definitely like puts a lot of my shadows into light, which is very uncomfortable for me. Originally, I probably would have given this book an 8 out of 10, but about halfway through, I look up and I tell Ethan, if this book ends the way I think this book is gonna end, that is so terrible and corny, and I will hate this book. I'm enjoying myself right now, I really am, but everything will change if the ending is what I think it was gonna be. And then the ending was what I thought it was gonna be, and it's just so cheap. It's so, like, the foreshadowing isn't even foreshadowing on it either. It's like she's like winking at you through the page, but not in like a fun writer, like, aha, way. And like it's not even a wink. It's more of like she's shaking me. And she's like, do you get it? Do you get what's gonna happen? Haha, do you see how funny and clever I am? And I'm just like, that is so cheap and ugh. So I think instead of an 8, I'll give it a 7 out of, a 7.5. I feel like I should bring it down even more, but it's like, that was a couple pages, you know, and other than that couple pages, I would give it an 8. So I can only bring it down a half a point for those couple pages. But if I was going fully with my emotions and committing to being unfair, I'd probably bring it down more like a 5 or a 6, solely because the ending is so trash. It's like trashy, like it's it's like so trash that it actually is like trashy. Number 30, Slaughterhouse 5. I don't know why I just did that. Because I love Kurt Vonnegut, I guess. And this year was a big Kurt Vonnegut year for me. So this is the first of the year. It's based off of his time in Dresden in World War II. But it's also got some like science fiction in there, which you don't usually get with war books. But with Kurt Vonnegut, that's his classic, that's his MO, you know, is war and science fiction. And I don't even like science fiction, but I love Kurt Vonnegut, so that's how you know it's good. This is so sad and so funny and almost never in between. I also usually hate when things aren't chronological, but Vonnegut just plays with time in such a beautiful and clever way where I can't even be mad. He makes the book better by making it not chronological. And plus, the chronology of this one is kind of a plot device as well. I mean, it always is, but I don't know. If you know what I mean. 9 out of 10, but why did he have to draw boobs? Love Sickness. This one, again, not very gory, more psychological. It's multiple stories. Love Sickness is the main story. The drawings in the Love Sickness story, I really, really enjoyed. Other than, I get that like his earring is supposed to make him like hot boy, kind of like K-pop vibes. But to me, he just couldn't be scary with an earring. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was scared a good amount of the time, but I found myself being pulled out of it by the earring. So 7.5 out of 10. Cats in the Cradle, Kurt Vonnegut. Why did I look? I know it's bad. Vonnegut loves satire, as you probably know. So funny, as always, but also makes you think. 8 out of 10. Maybe an 8.5. I have a hard time rating Vonnegut because it's like every book is like a 10 out of 10 relative to other books. But when it comes to Vonnegut, it's like, this isn't my favorite Vonnegut ever. It's one of them. So it's like, I want to give it like a 9 or a 9.5 or a 10. But it's unfair because there's so much Vonnegut coming up that's also good. I'm going to change it anyways to a 9. This is a 9 out of 10 for me. Deserter, Junjito. It's pretty good, especially the last story. The title stories are usually the best, I feel like. But maybe I'm just prone to suggestion. But The last one is the title one, and so that also could be why it stuck with me the most. The stories in this were his earlier work, so it's just objectively not as good as the stuff he's doing now. It's just not on par, especially illustration-wise, with his stuff after he got good, which is to be expected. And I mean, I'm glad that it's published because it's still good. Gonna give it 7.5 out of 10. Here we have Death Note in one chunk. One big, it's like pulling Spam out of a can. It's like a Bible, and it smells like a Bible. And the pages are like half laminated with that waxy stuff like a Bible. So I had to get it, especially because it was on sale for like 30 or 40% off or something crazy. So I decided, since I'm gonna buy it, I might as well reread it. So yes, this one was a reread for me, and Death Note was actually the first manga I ever read. Fun fact. So it holds a special place in my heart, and it's also really good. I should probably say what it is, right? It's, whatever. You all know what Death Note is. 10 out of 10. 35. Luminal Zone. Technically, we're more at like 50 right now, if you count each individual like volume of the series. But I'm counting each series as one book because I can't count that high. Anyway, 35, but basically 55 is Liminal Zone. Also, Junjito. When I read this, it was the newest work. When this video comes out, it might not be his newest, latest thing anymore, but this, nonetheless, is fantastic. He's definitely continuing to steadily like progress and grow as both an illustrator and a writer. He hasn't just plateaued, which is amazing. These stories are more long form than his usual, so you can tell he's like trying that out to be like short stories, but longer short stories. And I can't really tell if I like it or not. I can't really tell if it adds much to his work, but still really enjoyable. I'd give this one a 9 out of 10. 36 and 37 and 38, but actually I'm just gonna call this 36. But technically there's 3. It's Dante, and it's his Inferno, Purgatorio, and then Paradiso. Excuse me, speaking Italian like an American. Super fucking weird, obviously, because it's super fucking old, and old people are fucking weird. I cannot give this the respect it deserves because I cannot read Italian well already, and I especially could not read this in Italian. I could hardly read it in English. Just kidding. I'm smarter than that. But still, it was a struggle. I had to look a lot of things up. There are people who dedicate like their lives to studying Dante. I'm not gonna act like I freaking just read it and was like, this makes sense. Honestly, the footnotes in this, I don't know, what edition is this? This is vintagebooks.com. It says, I don't know who published this. Is that what they're just called? They're just called vintage books. Is that allowed? Is this allowed? I really like this edition. Oh, okay, the Carlisle Wicksteed translation, and it is Vintage Classics. It looks like who published it. But I really like this edition. It really helped me out a lot. They had little introductory parts and footnotes and stuff, so I still did end up having to look stuff up. But Dante, of course, is an extraordinary poet. He's very poetic. Metaphors left and right. This is gonna seem like a really harsh rating considering how iconic it is, but I'm not rating this objectively based off of how iconic it is. I'm rating it based off of how much I enjoyed it. So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. The difficulty definitely brings the rating down because it takes away from the enjoyment, but it's worth translating the translation. 7 out of 10. For you, Dante. 37. Oh, this warms my heart to hold it. I want to hug it. God bless you, Mr. Rosewater. Kurt Vonnegut. Man, love this one. It's my new favorite Vonnegut. Maybe it was by the time I read it. I don't know. It's so hard to pick a favorite. I think my favorite's actually Breakfast of Champions, which we'll get to. So this maybe is a second favorite, maybe a tie for first. It's so good. It's so good. What religion is to Cat's Cradle, economics is to God bless you, Mr. Rosewater. Oh, Dante got me making analogies. Great critiques on capitalism and wealth in general, the wealthy, the rich, and just economics in general. 10 out of 10. No question. Next we have Albert Camus, The Myth of Sisyphus. This is a philosophy on suicide. Also, sorry about the name if I get it wrong. I don't respect French people. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really sorry though if I do get the name wrong. I've been wanting to read this honestly for so long because of this stupid fucking TikTok. Back when I had TikTok, I saw this post that was like, one must imagine Sisyphus vibing. And that just cracked me up so much. If you don't know, there's a famous quote in this book, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. It's very iconic. If you read it in context, it'll make sense, but that just killed me. One must imagine Sisyphus vibing. And I already knew enough about the book to like get the TikTok, so I'm like, okay, now I have to read this book so I can laugh at this TikTok even harder. Definitely don't agree with all the philosophy of this book, and I think if the great philosophers that he was dunking on were still alive to defend themselves today, they would have wrecked him in the marketplace of ideas. But I mean, a lot of it is still really good points and it's well written. It's still super enjoyable and makes you think. 7 out of 10. 39. Rant by Chuck Palahniuk. This was amazing. I looked up the reviews on it though, and it does not have good reviews. So you may not like this, but it seemed like the bad reviews were mostly written by people who like did not get it. And let me tell you, I get this. Sorry if I said his name wrong. Chuck Palahniuk is how I always say it in my head, and it just came out so naturally, but I've never said it out loud. I hate this cover. I hate covers like this. Stop making covers like this. I mean, I love the cover. It's just this. Stop this. Because look at this. Look at how worn it gets. Based on the back of the book, I thought this was going to be murder mystery, which we know I do not like. But it ended up being science fiction, which we also know I do not like. But I actually really ended up against all odds. I really, really love this. I'm thoroughly surprised and amazed that he can get me to like something like this, because it also plays with chronology. Another thing I don't like. So I am thoroughly surprised that I enjoyed this, but I'm very glad I did. It's kind of convoluted, kind of confusing, like while you're going through it, but by the end it makes sense, which is my favorite type of book. This is so well written and the world building is incredible. I will warn you, there is a rape scene. Another thing I usually hate, but it's not gratuitous, so I'm not mad at it, which I almost never say about rape scenes. So 8 out of 10. Number 40 for me was One Step Too Far by Lisa Gardner. My grandma made me read it. It's a murder mystery. I guessed the killer on page 50 because it sucks. I hated most of the book too after that, but I had to read it because my grandma was making me. She said it was the best book she's ever read. It was one of the worst books I've ever read, especially the main character. Like, she's so annoying, which is fine. You don't have to like the character of a book, but it makes it really hard in a first-person perspective book when you don't get along with the narrator, and it's not even fun. 2 out of 10. Literally on the same level of Promise Me, which I feel bad about. Am I gonna have to move Promise Me up to a 3? No, I can't move Promise Me up to a 3. I feel like Promise Me actually isn't. I feel like Promise Me might be worse than this one though, still actually. So I think I'll give this one a 2.5 out of 10. But if I didn't have Promise Me on the same list, it's like I feel like giving this one 2. But I think Promise Me is actually worse than this one. So I think I'm gonna have to give this one a 2.5, even though it's so bad, just so it can be. I'll just give it 2.1. Number 41. I don't know why I keep doing that. Ray Bradbury. I think it's so funny to say his name because there's this old classic H3 video where they're making fun of the way Ethan Bradbury says his name, and he goes, "I'm Ethan Bradbury." And so the whole time I was reading this, I just kept saying to Ethan, "I'm Ray Bradbury." I had to like show him the video and everything so he would understand, because for the good first 100 times that I was screaming around the house, "I'm Ray Bradbury," he did not know what was going on. This one is a reread from high school English class, but I'm really glad I gave it another shot. I mean, I liked it the first time around too, but I was like, I'm older now. I like books even more than I did when I read it. Maybe. I don't know. I've always loved books. But I was like, I gotta go at it again. I don't think this needs much of an explanation or a review, considering it's required reading for high school English. But I know people have different required readings and stuff, but whatever. Look it up. I'm just gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I really, really love it. 42. Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. I don't know why I look at the cover like I don't know what's going on. I guess I just like how pretty the cover is, especially this one. It's just so cute, little dog in the truck. This is only my second time reading nonfiction Steinbeck. The other Steinbeck books I've read have been fiction. But I really like this, and I would really like to read more like this. I love learning about his life, and he's just such a great writer. And after finishing this and while reading it, every time now that I just see a pretty view, I just say to myself, and sometimes out loud, this is John Steinbeck's America, and we're just living in it. I don't know why, but that's how this made me feel. He just writes so simple, yet so profound. And it's not like Hemingway simple, where you're like, you're dumb or you think I'm dumb. It's beautiful. 10 out of 10. 43. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. Delia? I'm not sure. This one was made into a movie, and my family went and saw the movie, and they were like, you got to read this. And so I did. Oh, it's snowing. Ew. I didn't like it. I mean, it's not just the snow. I didn't like this back when it wasn't snowing either. I think the worst part for me was reading 14-year-old on 18-year-old foreplay. That was really uncomfortable. And I was supposed to be rooting for the 18-year-old because he stopped before it got to sex. You still had foreplay with a 14-year-old. You still touched her pussy and boobs. It was really uncomfortable to read. Honestly, more uncomfortable to read than the multiple attempted rape scenes. So I was wondering, why are people calling this a mystery when there's no mystery? Like, you know who the murderer is the whole time? It's very obvious. It's more than foreshadowed. She tells you. I was really hoping for a twist the whole time. Like, I had a few different killers in my head that I would have accepted as a twist where I could see the motive and I thought it would have been good. And I was hoping she was just gonna throw the loop in there, but no. The killer is exactly who the book tells you it is. And they do the murder I can just say she. I mean, it's obvious. It's not a twist. Yeah, it's not a spoiler alert. And she does the murder exactly the way that the book tells you she does. So I just don't get the point because I don't really love the writing. I just don't get it. I'm sorry. It just seems, once again, like profiting off of real women's trauma. I like some parts. And I like the idea of a marsh girl. And I like Kaya in general. I just didn't like Tate or really any of the other characters, but Jumpin' and Mabel. So, spoiler alert, I was hoping that the killers were going to be like Jumpin' or Mabel, and I also would have accepted like some other things, but I don't know. I would have accepted Tate being the killer, and then maybe I would have actually liked Tate a little bit, but it's just boring overall, I guess, is my main complaint. 3 out of 10. 44. Medium Hero by Corby Linker. Corby is a local guy from Idaho, so I've ran into him a couple times. I went to his shows. I don't know why I'm acting like we saw each other at like Freddy's. My point though is, since we've met, I am biased, so I love this. But I really think it's really well written, especially for a person who's not a writer. He's a musician. This goes super fast. I mean, it's teeny, so of course it does. But even for how teeny it is, it goes fast because it's just super fun. 8.5 out of 10. Down and Out in London and Paris. It's going to be our number 45. It's by George Orwell. Why do I look like I don't know the authors of the book I read? It's crazy, but like sad crazy, how a book written during the Great Depression is so accurate for life and, well, especially poverty today. Like, it seems so modern. Orwell's always timeless though, so can I really be surprised? 8.5 out of 10. More Vonnegut. Mother Night. This one hurts. It's so good. It hurts. It's about how we are who we pretend to be. So be careful what you pretend to be, because you not only will become it, but you already are it while pretending, you know? So be good out loud and in public. Be yourself and don't keep your good secret. Because when you keep your good secret, you're just not good. Good people don't keep their good secret. It reminds me of people like Alex Jones and Ben Shapiro. There's actually a guy in this whose last name is Jones, who's basically a parody of Alex Jones before he was maybe even born, but definitely before he was famous. 10 out of 10. I could not recommend this book enough. I think I could recommend it to just about anyone and anyone would like it. Give it to your racist uncle as a birthday present. Just kidding, he's not gonna like it. Henley, Shakespeare. This is referenced in everything, so I had to read it. But I mean, who doesn't know what this is? 7 out of 10. 48. Hocus Pocus. Wanna get. I mean, he just covers everything in this one. Very heavy Vietnam focus, but also talks about economy, climate change, love, prison industrial complex, plastic, whatever you have a problem with, Vonnegut probably has a problem with it too. I mean, considering you don't suck. So this is just, this was so good. 9 out of 10. Life of Pi by Yann Martel. I don't know. He might be French. So I don't know how to say his name. I like this a lot more than I thought I would, because it's very religious, but like it's Christian, Muslim, and Hindu, so that's fun. The end murdered me dead. Oh, I am now dead. I rate this an 8.5 out of 10 from the grave. 50, Sirens of Titan, Vonnegut. This is Ethan's favorite Vonnegut. It wasn't my favorite, but it's definitely up there for me. It's very, very good. I will say, I don't know if it earned a rape scene. Do you know what I mean? I feel like a rape scene is something you have to earn. And I just don't know if it was so well deserved, but I really enjoy the ideas in this book. I love the idea of an apathetic god and humans being so tiny and all that. And the perspective of war is intense and interesting, as it always is with Vonnegut, but especially in this one. This one's got, you know, Vonnegut's always on about war, but this one, yeah, okay. 8.5 out of 10. Sea of Cortez by Steinbeck. This is the other nonfiction that I read by Steinbeck. And this was a reread for me because after reading Travels with Charlie, I really wanted to check this one out. I mean, check it out again. I'm not at a library, so I probably shouldn't say check it out when I've already seen it. I wanted to re-experience it. It's about Steinbeck and his friend and some other people going to the Gulf of California and turning over rocks looking for sea creatures, basically. 7.5 out of 10. The good parts are really good. Like, there's some 10 out of 10 parts in this, but the hard parts are kind of hard, and I don't know, 7.5 seems a little... Okay, it's a 7.5 for a Steinbeck book. How about that? But relative to other books, it's probably more like an 8. Number 52, I left in my cabin because it's called The Mackie I Remember, and it's nonfiction about the city that our cabin's in. So I was like, this belongs here, so I don't have it here for you. I will say, okay, it's by a guy named John Powers. He's not a writer, and he's not a historian. But he wrote it anyways. The pictures are awesome though. If I learned anything, it's that everything in Mackie, Idaho, every business, every building has either been burned down, ruined in an earthquake in the 80s, or crashed into by a car. There's nothing, like I always picture walking around, I'm like, ooh, everything's so old. No. Everything has been rebuilt from either a fire, an earthquake, or someone just driving their car right into it. 54, Silver Spoon by Hiromu Arakawa. I'm sorry if I got the pronunciation wrong. If you didn't recognize it, but you know it, she's the author of Full Metal Alchemist, another manga I really enjoy. I only read the first one in this one so far. This is the first one in a series, but it's really cute, and I could see myself continuing the series. It's based in Hokkaido, and I'm going there soon, so it was really exciting to read something based in Hokkaido. I love her art style always, but especially in this because she gets to draw a lot of cute animals like cows, baby pigs and stuff. It's just so adorable. But I don't mean to like water her down or like patronize her by being like, oh my god, that cat's so adorable. Like the writing is really good and there's honestly some deep stuff in it, especially for like the first of a series. This is the complete short story collection of Ernest Hemingway. I don't know why I did this to myself. I know I don't like Hemingway. Why did I do this? I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I hate him. He's so fucking boring. And not in the way where I'm like, oh, I don't understand this. No, I'm smart enough to understand it. Trust me, it's just boring. He wasn't even a good guy, so I don't know why I apologize. I don't feel bad for saying this. I'll say something even more intense. I'm glad he killed himself. He was one of the few people that got it right. Like Hitler. He shouldn't have been alive. Good riddance. Not even gonna put that. I shouldn't have done that. It's already so fucked up. I got at a garage sale and it was all water damaged and I tried to halfway fix it and now I'm just trying to ruin it again. Speaking of garage sale, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about Life of Pi. I got this at a garage sale and I think it's literally signed. Like, doesn't that look like it says Yan Martel, whatever? Marta. Like, I don't know. I think I have a signed copy of Life of Pi. At the same garage sales where I got the Corby Lanker one, I have a different copy of it. I have 2 copies now because one of the copies was signed at the same garage sale. Which makes more sense to have a signed Corby Lanker book in Idaho. But Life of Pi? Oh, I forgot to rate the Hemingway. It would be a 0 out of 10, but I will give him 1 point for killing himself. And 1 point for being the clue to Jeopardy so often. So I'm gonna put it at 2 out of 10. Congrats, you're as bad as promised me. On again, let's cleanse our palate with Welcome to the Monkey House. Also a collection of short stories, but this time they're actually good. This is the only man to get me to like science fiction. I guess other than Chuck. But this is the only man to make me like thoroughly enjoy science fiction and see that it can actually like be good on the regular. Sometimes science fiction, sometimes. 8.5 out of 10. 57, Bluebeard. A lot of Vonnegut coming at you, warning. This one satirizes, no. This one is like a satire of art mostly, but it's no Vonnegut. You know it's about so much more. Big focus on modern art specifically though. I love the way he writes women. I never thought that sentence would come out of my mouth. I had to like say it quiet. It felt so weird coming out, but I really enjoy the way Vonnegut writes women. I really like it, especially in this one. He's got 2 girl bosses in this one. And I don't mean that they're murdering their husbands. I mean they're actually women and they're not multi-level marketing. I mean, they're just strong women. 8 out of 10. Vonnegut. Jailbird. How can this man understand and empathize with my feelings about the prison industrial complex more than my own friends and family? He gets me. He gets me. Or I guess I get him. 8 out of 10. Breakfast of Champions. This one is so emotional, so action-packed, and convoluted in the best way. If you love Vonnegut, you're gonna love this. I would recommend reading as much of him as you can first. Like, this is like a grand finale. Like, I've read all the Vonnegut in the world. I didn't know that before I picked it up, though. I don't. But the reason I say that is it's got like some of his most famous characters interacting with each other, and it's just so fun. Oh my gosh. It's so well done. It's not corny at all. It sounds corny. Like, I could tell you a million things from this and you'd be like, that's corny, that's lame. But the way he does it is so good. It's amazing. I've never read something this meta. 10 out of 10. 60, Deadeye Dick. More Vonnegut. Guns, prescription meth, Big Bomb. It's about a lot. It's honestly one of my favorites of his. It really plays with moral gray areas, which he loves to do, but he's always really good at doing it, but just especially this one. 9 out of 10. 61, the first and last works of Kurt Vonnegut. This is 2 works. I wish he had more time. I'm gonna cry. I wish all the great writers had more time. He feels or felt like what I feel, but he was able to put it into words, and I suck at that. And he was so good, and I wish I could write how I feel, or just at least write to him. And I wish I could write to him, just to have him say something back. Like, I don't even care about me saying anything to him. I just want him to say something to me. Hurts my heart. 8 out of 10. Hey, it's December Lex. I haven't got to do a lot of reading because I've been fighting for my life and my own personal health. But what a great way to talk about this book, Behind the Beautiful Forevers by Catherine Boo. This was a reread for me, as you can tell by how dirty and red this book is. I love this book. Also, sorry about the sound quality. I have to blast the fan, so hopefully you don't hear all the animal noises and neighbor noises because I'm in hell. Anyways, really fitting though for this. It's about poverty. It's about, you know, systemic issues in India and how people live. It's nonfiction, and that makes it so much worse in a way, because it's, this is really good. It was recommended by John Green a few, like 10 years ago in one of his videos, and I read it at first in middle school, and I've just kept rereading it since. And it also talks about like divides between like Muslims and Hindus, which is very relevant for the area I am in right now in Indonesia, even though this takes place in India. But a lot of it is very relevant, like the trash issues and the religious divide and poverty. All that's really relevant for Indonesia as well, even though it takes place in India. So I wanted to give it a reread, and I'm glad I did. This is a 9 out of 10 for me. Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda. And this is about psychoactive drugs, like psychedelics, and more specifically like mescaline, peyote. There are other ones that it talks about too. This is supposed to be nonfiction, but it's debated whether it is or not. I think it is. I believe in all of this. It talks about like corn magic, like black magic with corn, and a bunch of other crazy stuff too. But I'm crazy, so I believe it, but I didn't really enjoy it, even though I do believe it. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I think we're on like 70 now, but I don't care. Don't have a script, don't have notes on any of these, so I don't care. We're gonna call this 70 though, because 70 Solitude sounds good. Number 70, Solitude. A Return to the Self, Anthony Store. It was okay. 6 out of 10. I'm always reading different translations of the Tao Te Ching. I didn't talk about it through the rest of this video, but I'm just going to end on one of these. And I want to end on this one because I hate this one. The Stephen Mitchell version is not a translation. It's like an interpretation, and I do not like the interpretation. This guy does not speak Chinese. He doesn't even study Taoism. He studies Buddhism, and so he made it all Buddhist, and I'm not for that. I'm a Taoist. I'm not a Buddhist. If you're a Buddhist, that's fine, but that's not my thing, and you shouldn't make it like the Tao Te Ching Buddhist. It's not Buddhist, it's Taoist. And it's just so passive and weird and like Zen, and I don't like it. So yeah, that's why I wanted to bring up this translation. But I did read many other translations that are really good. I would recommend, honestly, any other one I've read other than this one. 0 out of 10. And I did read other books throughout the year. I don't have them with me, and I also I counted each series as like one book, but there was plenty of series that had 10 or more volumes in it. And like for example, even like Dante I counted as one book, that was 3. Death Note I counted as one book, it's like freaking 7 or 11 or something. I don't know. Parasite I counted as 1, it's like 8. So I did read 100 books this year. I don't care if you believe me or not. I just want to get this video over and be done with it. I freaking hate my life. I wish I could read. I don't even have time to read. I don't even have a safe place to read, like with noise quality and stuff. So I'm sorry. I would have read way more this year if life didn't love kicking my ass. So that was over 100 books that I read this year, and if you don't think I read 100 books, that's fine. You don't have to count it as 100. I'm counting it as 100 because I know I could have read even more if life would have taken it a little easier on me. And next year, I'm gonna read 200 just to say fuck you. And I'm gonna stay home next year where I can read in the cabin and love myself and love my life. I'm done traveling for a little bit. I'm going to take it easy and travel with my mind in books. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. I don't think anyone's going to make it this far, and that's why I'm just like going crazy towards the end, because I don't think anyone's here. I think if you're here, you probably fast forwarded to see if I really did read 100, and then you're just going to move on. So if you fast forwarded, hi, and if you didn't, you're probably not here. Anyway, bye.